Tem for the Citizens Review Board for this evening's meeting. At this time, the Tuesday, October 24, 2023 meeting of the Citizens Review Board is now called to order. I ask that we all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If I may, Kamaria Pettis-Mackel from the legal department. Good evening, members. As you can see, we tonight don't have a chair or a vice chair. As a result, we will need to have a motion to elect a chair pro tem. Can someone please make a motion to elect a chair pro tem?
Yes, this is Irene Guy. I'd like to elect Lincoln Tamargo as the chair pro tem.
I have not changed my name, it's Tamayo.
Oh, okay, I've only known him about 42 years. Sorry, Lincoln.
Was there a second to the motion?
Second.
Okay.
There is a good family of Tamargos here in Tampa, but I'm
I know
not
there
part of that family.
And can we vote on the motion, please? All those in favor? Thank you. You may proceed.
I will humbly, if not reluctantly, accept the responsibilities for this evening. Madam Secretary, if you can please conduct the roll call.
Banks.
Present.
Collins. Tamayo.
Present.
Reyes. Guy.
Present.
Akil. Ingadella. Present. Valdez.
Present.
Okay, I ask at this time that our Vice Chair Pro Tem, Mr. Valdez, please read the meeting guidelines.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Please silence all electronic devices. The duties and responsibilities of the Citizens Review Board are to review completed department investigations involving use of force in cases of importance and interest to the community or the city. Determine whether the disposition of review cases was consistent with department policies and procedures. Review matters of importance or interest and make recommendations regarding the handling of these matters. Determine whether any revisions or additions to department policy and procedures are appropriate in reviewing matters of or importance or interest, and report findings and recommendations to the mayor and chief of police. Cases that are brought before the Citizens Review Board are closed internal affair cases that have been investigated and brought to the police chief for disposition. It is the Citizens Review Board's job to review the cases and render an opinion as to whether the investigation was done according to the department policies and procedures. The Citizens Review Board members are provided the investigative files in advance of the meeting. The Citizens Review Board will hear from the department whenever matters of interest or importance are requested for review by the board or the department. The coordinator for the board is Captain Kevin Schoolmeesters. Did I say that right? Meester. Any person who wishes to make a complaint concerning a matter which may be considered by the professional standard bureaus should see Captain Schoolmeesters. By the Professional Standards Bureau should see Captain Schoolmeesters for information on how to file a complaint. The board should not discuss matters where the city or the department may likely be a party in litigation.
Okay, before we go on to public comment, we should go and approve the minutes. The minutes have been provided to all the members in advance. We need to approve. We need an approval of the minutes for the September 26, 2023 meeting. Do we have any motions?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, Member Guy has moved to approve, and Reverend Banks has seconded. Can we have a vote with a raise of hands for approval? Any noes? Minutes are approved unanimously. We now move to the public comment section of the meeting. Ladies and gentlemen, this board wants to hear from the public through public comment, which is provided in a professional and orderly manner. In order to ensure this meeting is conducted in accordance with the policies and procedures, I am announcing that as chair, I will strictly enforce the following rules for the benefit of ensuring an orderly and professional meeting. I am requesting the board not address public comment until the end of public comment. Speakers will be limited to 3 minutes at the kiosk. As required by the policy, speakers will announce their full name and address. This is for the benefit of the clerk who is taking minutes. Speakers may only speak once. Speakers may not yield their time. Comments should be limited to matters related to the Tampa Police Department. Comments should not be made regarding ongoing professional standards cases. Comments shall be directed to the board as a whole and not to an individual member. At this time, we will go to the speakers who wish to come to the podium for public comment. Speakers must remember to state your name and address, as the clerk is keeping minutes and needs to know who is talking. The clerk will start the timer for the speakers. I will ask for an amendment on that. In these days in which people's comments when made in public can be used against them, I would ask that instead of, you certainly state your name. You don't have to give your address out on the television screen, but please do let the clerk know after your public comment before you leave what your address is. We can have that in the minutes. You don't have to state it out in public. I will now ask whether there were any recorded comments received through the voicemail set up for this meeting. Is there any public comment? Please. Well, we should go to public.
Also, just for reference purposes, who's the clerk that I'll go to afterwards? Okay,
Ms.
cool.
Wilcox here.
Okay,
Thank you,
perfect.
ma'am.
Yeah, of course. So good evening. My name is Gareth Dawkins. I'm here on behalf of the Tampa Bay Community Action Committee, on behalf of Kelsey Storemski, to demand that the CRV recommend disciplinary action against the police officers Nicholas J. Hardesty and Adonis Morgan, who arrested and brutalized her in 2019. And that TPD opened up an official investigation into these two officers as a measure of accountability for their heinous actions. I would also like for this to be investigated as an instance of excessive force in violation of professional codes of conduct.
Thank you, miss. Please, sir, step up to the podium.
Hello, my name is Joseph Nahava. I am also with Tampa Bay Community Action Committee. Also here to speak for Kelsey Storemski, who couldn't make it tonight for a few reasons, but I have some words that she sent me that I'd like to share. And yes, of course, I echo Garrett's comments about wanting you all to recommend that TPD open an actual investigation into this case of clear excessive police brutality and excessive force. Several police and hospital staff watched, these are her words, by the way, several police and hospital staff watched me get my face beaten into the ground. But even after having a private investigator look into it, the camera evidence was wiped and not a single police officer turned on their body camera when they are required to do so. A properly trained police officer would never have their leg over someone's neck because it could kill someone. This incident has affected my relationships, mindset, even my ability to feel safe, to go anywhere and meet new people. So we want Tampa PD to actually take this seriously and for you all to do what you are supposedly there to do, which is to help hold them accountable, right? I mean, that's the whole purpose of this board, is to foster, you know, a trusting kind of relationship between the community and the police. So if that is what you all are here to do, then, you know, you really have no other option but to actually recommend that the police properly investigate this, because clearly there wasn't one, despite the complaint that she filed. The evidence was, you know, covered up and not properly followed up upon, even though there was clearly enough of it to at least warrant an investigation, much less discipline and, I think, firing. I mean, we think firing and perhaps even criminal charges. Yeah, so thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nhaba. Any other public comment?
Yeah.
Okay, seeing none, I'll ask whether there were any recorded comments received through the voicemail set up for this meeting.
There were no recorded comments.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll now ask the clerk, Ms. Wilcox, have we received any written comments?
Yes, and Kamaria Pettis-Mackle will.
Kamaria Pettis-Mackle from the City Attorney's Office. I provided each member a copy of a spreadsheet of all of the public comment that was provided to the city. It's in a long spreadsheet. There's 2 sides to it, and those are all the public comments that were submitted to the city
Okay,
in a written format.
We don't need to read them into the.
No, you
record.
could, at the end of the agenda, if you want to make a motion to receive and file all documents that were received at this hearing today, you're certainly welcome to do that as well.
Okay, thank you very much. That concludes the public comment portion of our meeting. Is there any staff or board response to the public comment for today, for this evening? Seeing that there is none, now turn to the items to be reviewed for this agenda, and the first item is Ms. Kelsey Staremski, case 21C-171.
Good evening, Board. Name's Kevin Schoolmeisters, and the Captain of Professional Standards Bureau. And tonight I'll be reviewing the citizen's complaint, which we have listed as 21C-171. That's how it is in our system. Each of you were furnished with the police report of the incident. So I'm just going to go over, kind of outline the facts of the case, and then take questions at the end. Okay, so according to the police report written in this case, on October 12th, 2019, at approximately 4:25 in the morning, which was a Saturday morning, a traffic stop was conducted at North Florida Avenue in East Estelle by a DUI officer. Subsequently, the driver was arrested for DUI, and Ms. Stormiski was a passenger in the same car. The officer told Ms. Stormiski to make some arrangements to have someone pick her up as she had a working cell phone. The officer at the time did not believe that she met the criteria of a Marchman Act. Our Marchman Act, for those that aren't familiar, it's allowed to take us a person in if they are under substance abuse. And I'm just paraphrasing here, but the Florida State statute for a Marchman Act is 397.675. An officer can take a person into protective custody if there is good faith reason to believe that the person is substance abuse impaired, and because such an impairment it is likely to suffer from neglect or abuse or refuse care for themselves, that such neglect poses a real and present threat of substantial harm to their well-being. The officer at the time didn't believe they had enough of that, so Ms. Stormiski left for 20 minutes and then she returned. She tried to attempt to get into the officer's locked, marked unit. The officer wrote in his report, due to her, quote, fluctuating emotions, verbally argumentative behavior, and a lack of a safe place to stay, the officer placed her under a Marchman Act. With the Marchman Act, we take her to usually a local receiving facility. In this case, it was St. Joseph's Hospital, located at 3001 West MLK. Upon their arrival, Ms. Stormiski refused to exit the patrol vehicle as the officer attempts to remove her. Another officer at the hospital on a different matter assists the officer in removing Ms. Stormiski. Ms. Stormiski attempts to kick the first officer, but the officer is able to move out of the way. Both officers escort her into the hospital. According to the report, Ms. Stormiski is starting to slowly cooperate. A third officer who was at the hospital sees the DUI officer with Ms. Stormiski and remains to assist him. Ms. Stormiski, who was sitting in a chair, quote, according to the police report, quickly jumped up from the chair and rushed towards the off-duty officer ahead of me, at which time I grabbed her right arm with my right arm and told her to sit down. Both officers then escort her back to her seat, and that is when Ms. Stormiski tries to kick the third officer, but misses, and then she successfully bites him, quote, in his upper right forearm just underneath his wrist. Both officers escort Ms. Stormiski to the ground and attempt to control her, but she tries to kick one of the officers. So one of the officer pins her leg so she doesn't kick them while on the ground, and the other officer places Ms. Stormsky into what we call a three-point pin, which is trained by officers to just control the upper body to control her. Then Ms. Stormsky bites a third officer for a second time and is in her left thigh. At that point, hospital staff arrives with a stretcher, which is equipped with restraints. The officers in the hospital staff restrain Ms. Stromzinski. The first bite was hard enough to break the skin of the officer. The report notes Ms. Stormsky suffered a minor injury due to being restrained. The injury was on top of her left forehead. There was a minor contusion and swelling, so the report was real detailed in the injuries suffered to Mr. Stormsky. During the incident, Ms. Stormsky would not identify herself and was later identified with what we call rapid ID. Takes a person's thumbprint on the scene and is able to identify her. According to the report, due to Ms. Stormsky's intoxicated state, charges for battery on Aaliyah will be direct filed and reviewed by the state attorney's office. When somebody is charged with a crime, the officers, with our shift commander's approval, can what we call is direct file. So instead of taking physically custody of them, because that would tie up that officer for the whole shift, because all you know, you've been to a hospital, it takes a long time. So this way, we can release them to the hospital, especially if she's under a Marchman Act, so they'll monitor her until her alcohol level comes down and it's safe to release her. So what we do is we send that to the state attorney's office, and then they make a determination whether there's probable cause based on our criminal report affidavit, whether to charge the person or not. So what happens is she is charged by the state attorney's office with battery on a Leo, which is a felony in the state of Florida. Ms. Stormsky enters a pretrial intervention program with the state attorney's office. Pretrial intervention offers first-time felons to enter into a probation-like process. If they complete the task in the agreement, like community service hours and pay a fine, the state will drop the charges. And looking at the state attorney's website, it appears like Ms. Stromczewski completed her side of the agreement and the charges were dropped. Ms. Stormsky contacted the Professional Standards Bureau on October 8, 2021, approximately 2 years later after the fact. The detective at the time documented the complaint, again in our AIM software under Citizens Complaint 21C171. At the time, he noted the officers were not equipped with body-worn cameras. This was before we had like a trial period, which we had approximately 68, I believe, cameras in use, but not like it is now, where we have 702 officers have cameras. He also noted that there was no camera footage from the hospital, as he looked into it. This case could not be opened due to the time lapse and other substantial evidence that would allow for the reopening of the complaint pursuant to the 100-day limitation on disciplinary action as outlined in Florida State Statute 112.532, which is the Officer's Bill of Rights. Furthermore, Article 37.6.2 of our PBA contract between the Police Benevolent Association and the City of Tampa, and I said the contract, this was current between 2019 and 2010, barred formal external complaints that were not brought within 180 days of the incident date. While this article was removed from the current contract, it was still in place at the time of this incident and then the time of the reporting of the complaint. Obviously, if this would have occurred now, it would have been all on body-worn camera, as officers obviously have body-worn cameras assigned to them. So I have any questions if anybody has one?
Couple of questions. Can we confirm that the officers that were involved with this incident had body-worn camera, or
No, they did not.
They did not.
DUI officers at the time, they didn't have body-worn cameras, but they had cameras. Back then, we used what was called the L3 system that was in their car. So let's say if you got stopped for a DUI, the traffic stop would be filmed, and then your physical abilities tests would be on camera, but they didn't have one on themselves.
Can you describe hand technique gestures, what is a 3-point pin position technique?
Is when we take somebody to the ground to control their upper body, is that you place your knee on the shoulder blade so that person can't get up, and then you position your leg behind whichever leg or arm you're behind, so they can't move that arm as well. When you're by yourself or with another person, it's just easier to control somebody's body.
And then lastly, what is the department's protocol policy as it relates to post-restraint? So we see that there's a restraint in a report or in an incident. Is there some type of follow-up, or is there a supervisory review that goes into place?
What do you mean, a restraint? A restraint that's done by us, there's different, obviously handcuffs are our most basic restraint. And then under our policy, that's not considered a use of force. But there's others where, we can tie your ankles to to the cuffs, which, is more commonly known as a hog tie, but it's what we refer to as a tarp. That's all reviewed by the supervisor. Now, in this case, it was at the hospital. So the hospital, when we take somebody, same as like a Baker Act. If we can't control them or whatnot, is their straps, on a gurney or in this stuff was a stretcher, or in a hospital bed, well, the hospital will restrain you to your bed, so you can't move your legs or your feet.
But for the 3-point pin technique, would there have been a supervisory review for that technique?
Just it would have been documented in the report, and all the reports were reviewed by the supervisor.
That's all I had.
Thank you, Mr. Valdez. Any other questions?
You did mention, you had indicated that that a slight injury was the injury from going on the stretcher or some of the work that had to be done?
Well, it's probably when they took her to the ground to put her down, that's when they documented her injury.
Any other questions? Thank you.
One more question, Mr. Chairman.
Sure, please, Mr. Valdez.
So if this event would have happened before the 180-day mark, would this event been investigated accordingly as it relates to policies and?
Well, it was looked into, but besides any substantial other evidence, there was, again, no footage, no camera footage. Usually most camera systems get rid of the footage within 30 days, but it's based on the policy of obviously the business that operates it. So, but without that, it would have been looked into, but that would have been the same outcome.
So the case was investigated even though it was after the 180 day?
Yeah, so they looked out to see if there's any other camera footage that could raise doubt on what the officers wrote in the report.
Any surveillance camera from the surrounding areas, was that looking into consideration?
No, the St. Joseph Hospital lobby is pretty secluded, so it would have to be the hospital camera system.
Captain Schoolmeesters, besides the PBA contract, was there any other avenue that Mr. Emsky could have taken to have this further investigated?
Well,
through the state attorney's office, and was there a statute of limitations in place? I think you may have mentioned something.
Well, at any time, she could have raised that with her defense attorney, which never was raised during this whole process. Like I said, she entered into the state into an agreement, so the charges wouldn't be filed. Again, your first time offense with a felony, they give you that benefit of the doubt. And then if you agree to all what they say, their stipulations, then they drop the charges. But she had that attempt. I mean, she never brought it up for 2 years. But after that point, there was no other substantial evidence to invalidate the arrest or show anything contrary to what the officers wrote.
And Captain, during that time that the case was being litigated, that was within 5-6 months of this occurrence?
Excuse me, I don't.
While this was being litigated and she was going through this, the process of being a defendant, litigating the case, this was within 5 or 6 months.
I don't know exact time frame, but it takes usually a month or two before the state will file charges on you, and then when you obviously go through hire an attorney, and then when they set up the agreement, it could take a lot longer than 5 or 6 months. But usually within a year, it's rectified, and then too, there's speedy trial parts of it as well. But that's more in depth that I don't have knowledge of how long this exact case.
And again, no mention made.
Correct.
Of this. And just for the record again, this occurred in October of 2019,
Correct?
and she did not file the complaint until October of 2021, 2 years.
2 years
after
later,
that.
correct.
And other than what we had in the police report, there was no other indication of what the injuries were other than what was written in this police report. And then we find out again from Ms. Staremski 2 years after the fact that she had these injuries.
Yeah, correct. We don't have access to her medical report or information.
And then also just to place in context, you have said that if this were to happen today, the body worn cameras would automatically be turned on as a matter of procedure.
Yeah, anytime an officer
Matter
takes
of
police activity, they're mandated to have their camera system on.
Okay, and at the time, 68 of Tampa's officers had body worn cameras out of the approximately 1,000 officers on the
Yeah,
force.
68, and currently we have 702 in deployment that are used by corporals and officers.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? Sorry. No, go ahead, go ahead.
There was something you said was.
One more question. So, as part of the investigation, did you guys get to interview any members at the hospital, staff or anything of that nature to see if that can be included as well?
Yeah, if there was evidence, obviously, yes, we would made this a formal case. And our detectives would have gone out and interviewed them. But 2 years later, it's past the time limits of when we can investigate it.
Please, Ms. Collins.
When,
Dr. Collins, sorry.
and what's her name? That's good. Say her name again for me.
Ms. Staremski,
When,
Kelsey Staremski.
when Kelsey, when Mrs. Kelsey actually filed her complaint the first time, or she didn't file it until 2 years later when she filed it, did she attach a medical report at that time?
I know what, I'm sorry, I couldn't hear
A
you. ma'am.
medical report
No,
from St. Joe's at that time?
no.
Okay.
So there have been, there are technically or in reality, there are no findings of the Professional Standards Bureau.
Correct, it was never made into a formal complaint. So you wouldn't have, like, say, normally I come up here and I review formal complaints where a captain writes the dispo letter, none of that occurred.
Well, in this particular case, I find no reason to even be asking for a motion to, to consent or dissent against the findings, because there are no findings. So unless someone wants to put in I think this discussion is concluded.
And I just want to say I appreciate the department's effort for the body worn cameras, that they have gone all in, because things could have been captured earlier. This just happened today, so I really appreciate the fact that we have that available today as a resource. Because it's unfortunate something like this, we don't have the information that we need, if there is any, to be able to move forward with anything.
Which could have been to the benefit of either Mr. Emsky and the police department as well. So I second Mr. Valdez's.
Those body worn cameras, they clear a lot of things up real quickly, because the first thing we do is when we receive a complaint is we look at the camera footage. And just to let you know, we were having the Axon 3s, which was cutting edge, but they had just come up with Axon 4s. So we're in the midst of deploying those to the officers, and we should by next week have everybody with a cutting edge Axon product, the Axon 4. There's a lot of different features that helps. It's got a better battery life, which is with these old ones. It's like your cell phone. Each generation the battery seems to get better. So in theory, it'll last longer. It's got a better camera on it. So we're excited to have it, the new system, or the new cameras.
And I just wanted to make a point for what you've indicated. In a situation like Ms. Kelsey and others, and as you've indicated how useful they are, when you can go back and look at the body-worn cameras, I want to also commend the CRB. Oftentimes people don't know our level of involvement, but I remember when the first cameras came in for the 60-some officers. And then there was a grant that was involved, and we actually wrote an endorsement letter to TPD as the CRB to help assist getting those. And I think those are the kind of things that sometimes people don't see that the CRB is doing with TPD, but that was real positive.
Yeah, those cameras are very expensive. It takes a lot of effort to get them.
So,
And lastly, I want to say thank you to the community members that have, been bringing this case forward. Like I said earlier, unfortunately, with the limited information that we have, if there would have been body footage camera, it would have been a lot different, but, that we can discuss or whatnot. So I appreciate, again, the community coming out and making their concerns be heard as well.
Thank you, Mr. Valdez. Captain Schoolmeisters, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
We'll now proceed with the Community and Tampa Police Department matters. We have on the agenda a report on the Behavioral Health Unit.
Yes, thank you. So I am Lieutenant Robin Polk with the Tampa Police Department, and I supervise the sworn side of BHU and a lot of other things. And this is our clinical supervisor, Dr. Kathy Thompson. So, do you know how to work this stuff? That's why she's the doctor, so she can turn on a computer here. So what is the BHU and why do we have it? Basically, the city of Tampa realized that we had a problem, okay? And we care about the safety of our citizens and the safety of our officers. And we want to be on the forefront of policing, not on the back end. So we developed what we call the BHU. It stands for the Behavioral Health Unit. We developed a co-responder model, which is a sworn police officer paired with a licensed clinician, and they respond to calls. Currently in our unit, we have 4 officers, we have 3 clinicians, we're slotted for 4, but we have a vacancy and we're hiring for that currently. And then we have a clinical supervisor and a law enforcement supervisor. How does it go to the next? Boom, got it. So we think of this as like the 3 L's here. We do latent investigation, that's after the fact. So that means something has happened and it has been referred. The teams respond to live calls. Those are individuals in crisis at that moment that patrol normally would respond to, but instead we're sending a much more specialized team to that. And we focus on, the last L is long-term solutions. So as you may know, people with mental illness, there's no magical pill that the next day they're better. So, and a lot of times that's a drain on law enforcement resources, whether that's calls for service, repeat calls, stress on the family. So we're looking for long-term solutions to get those individuals quality care. And that's where the clinicians come into play. So how does the BHU work? Well, Doc Thompson reviews and triages every hospitalization via protective custody. So basically the case that you just heard about on the internal affairs side, if it's a Marchman Act or a Baker Act, she reads that report the next morning. Then she determines, is it something that we can do further? Is this an acute situation, a one-time scenario, or is there a bigger problem here? And we focus predominantly on those high utilizers. So those are people that are calling the repeat customers. Then the clinical staff, along with the sworn officer, makes contact with that individual, builds rapport, and assists in giving them referrals to case managers. Year to date, just to give some numbers for you guys, TPD has had 943 Marchman Acts. And a Marchman Act, as Captain Schoolmeister has explained, that's a substance abuse that they can't care for themselves at that exact moment. And 1,668 Baker Acts. That's when someone's in a mental health crisis and they are either a threat to themselves or someone else. And that's just the tip of the iceberg, because in reality, over 8,000 calls TPD has responded to that have some kind of crisis related to either substance abuse or mental health. So as you can see, a lot of our manpower, a lot of our efforts on the road and on patrol is related to these kind of calls. Oh, did you already? Okay, so we respond out as we can. You can also give referrals. So even if your neighbor, you're having an issue with your neighbor and it's a mental health issue and you're concerned, you can literally email our mental health unit and say, I think there's something going on here. Officers can do that on the street as well. We respond to live calls, and again, all of those protective custody cases we handle. So we talked a little bit about that. Real-time stuff. And so what are our goals? What are we hoping to achieve here? First and foremost, we want to reduce our deadly force encounters with citizens that experience behavioral health crisis. We want to reduce those repeat calls and the burden on law enforcement. We want to prevent unnecessary incarceration. Like, just because I'm having a mental health crisis, sometimes, years ago, the only solution was take that individual to jail. Now we know there's other options available. And unnecessary hospitalizations of those people. Can we get them in a treatment center? Can we get them hooked up with services that are going to prevent that? And currently we actually have applied for a grant and granted the Connect and Protect grant, which is actually, we're doing all this on patrol with our clinicians in real time, but this is when that call comes into our dispatch center, we are literally going to have a crisis call dispatcher that's going to divert that from law enforcement, so that potential use of force or that potential to go sideways, we can hopefully circumvent that even earlier. So we're very hopeful that that's going to be super successful for our unit as a whole. So what has this small unit, you remember early on in the presentation I said we've got 4 officers and 3 clinicians. That small unit, which we only began in 2021, but since our existence has served over 1,000 individuals. And if you look, we've connected 376 to services, and 1,871 follow-ups have been assigned to that small unit. So I think that's a very impressive number. And with that, I've bored you with all the facts, and I'm going to let Dr. Thompson tell you some of our success stories.
Good evening. This specific individual we're very, very proud of. This is probably one of our shining stars that I like to keep in the unit very fresh, because it was very much a long process. It was an adult male veteran who generated numerous calls for service. We're talking multiple per week, if not every day. So after ongoing connection and reporting to his home on a non-911 call, so the follow-up, the latent part, we were able to build rapport with this individual, get him connected back to the VA for different services, psychiatric and/or counseling and other things that he needed. So with that connection, we did monitor him. He continued the same pattern. It became a pattern of a call for service, a Baker Act hospitalization, the release from the hospitalization, only to find that other people in the community took up residence in his home. And so that's another process as well. It takes time to get everyone out. So during that process, a lot of times he would relapse with substance misuse and/or not taking medications as prescribed. So again, we continued engaging, and it wasn't until he felt safe with one specific BHU officer that he agreed to go to the VA to get an injectable medication, only if that BHU officer was the one to transport and to come up and check on him the next day, the next week. So through that relationship, we continue to check in on him. Again, we continue this day, even though the individual's quote unquote closed out. There's nothing that's marketing him, has him marked for our unit. Some of our officers still care, and whenever they're in the neighborhood, they will drop in and see how this individual is doing. So I am proud to say that for the last 7 months, we have had 0 hospitalizations, 0 calls for service on this individual. He is in services. He has gotten his driver's license back. His home is completely unrecognizable from the day one, and he has reconnected successfully with estranged family members.
Doctor, would members of the BHU unit stay in contact with this individual?
Yes.
That they are?
They are, and that is, again, that's outside of quote unquote, whenever we have a clinical discussion or staffing, and we see that they're successfully connected, they're doing what they need to do, we then collectively decide whether or not we're gonna quote unquote close that individual or continue follow-ups. So this individual was closed out, however, because we have so many calls near that area, we still continue to drop in on this individual. We still have an ongoing relationship with them.
Very good.
Yes, sir. Another one, it was an elderly female who accounted for numerous calls for service. Individual was frequently in extreme distress due to delusions and hallucinations. She believed that others were breaking into the home, stealing things from her, and she actually had a weapon. She couldn't find it. However, it was known that she did have a gun in the home. We contacted DCF, however, they were unable, or they determined to decline the case. So upon, again, ongoing BHU follow-ups, building that rapport, making that connection, we were able to connect that individual. We found the weapon, she surrendered it, that's great, so that was reduced, potential harm. But more importantly, we were able to connect with some of the individuals in her neighborhood that she trusted. We were able to walk them through the process of getting guardianship through the courts, and that individual was placed in assisted living facility. We did follow up at the assisted living facility. She was very thankful. She has her needs being met. And we also maintain that relationship with the neighbor. Should they need anything further, they can always reach out. And lastly, we had a 10-year-old with behavioral issues who generated a lot of calls for service. The parents, of course, were frustrated and kind of at their wits' end. So we assigned the case in June of 2023. We were able to get the family connected to services within the next month, so July 2023. We continued contact for another month after the child was connected to services, and we learned that they had additional wraparound support through the school system. So we were able to also support and make sure that we had kind of like a secondary net.
And so what I think makes our unit successful with that is those relationships, those continued contacts. We're not just dropping the ball on them, and they literally do develop relationships where those are the only people they trust. Moving to the next part, so we had this model in place, and then we said, but that's only 7 people, that's only 8 people, and really only 4 teams that can go out. So what about that midnight officer? What about that 22-year-old officer that just graduated the academy? Because we only offer services until midnight. That's the way we're able to span. So what we did is we implemented, it's called CIT training. It's crisis intervention training. This is pretty much the national standard. Every single new hire at the Tampa Police Department since 2022 has been trained in CIT. So they know how to deal with individuals in crisis, and we emphasize de-escalation techniques, identifying the difference between a mental health crisis and threats. And it's a 40-hour course. As you can see from this schedule, we bring in experts from all over. Doc Thompson does some of the instruction, and then we also use some of our community partners. But our hope is with this, every patrol officer has the skill sets that they need to deal with these kind of crises within our community. And our hope is that we lower our use of force, we offer better, more quality service, and we have less lethal encounters and a more educated line officer. And just to give you some context in that, like 20 years ago when I started in police work, I can tell you there was no 40-hour CIT training that was offered, or really probably it was maybe half an hour on mental health at all. And if you just look at the autism awareness and what we have now, like when people are on the spectrum and they tend to go towards water when they wander away, like that kind of training literally saves lives at the patrol level. When we respond to that house and the child is missing, and we know immediately now to go to that body of water, and that didn't exist 20 or 30 years ago. So I think we've made great strides. We hope to grow the unit in the future. But that's basically what the BHU is in a nutshell. So,
Lieutenant Polk, the number of cases have exploded in the last 3 years. One would think that a unit of 4 officers and 3 clinicians, that's sounding a lot like a guidance counseling office in a large public school. They just cannot possibly handle that load? Has there been any discussion with the city, the police department, with the city of Tampa about increasing the staffing?
We have, and it's basically boils down to funding. So currently, she and I were in a meeting today, we were talking, we're basically scraping the surface. So we use that term high utilizer, like she was telling you, the individual that had so many calls for service at that house. So we're getting about 1 or 2% of that. We would like to increase our footprint to be in the top 5 or 10% of those call volume folks that we could offer services to. But again, that comes with funding. This grant with the Crisis Center, we're hopeful for. We would like to expand at least to double what we are right now.
Okay, and that grant is now in play?
The grant is in play. We're in the planning phase. The grant is multi-year, but we're in the planning phase. But that deals with the services offered at the dispatch level, where we're instead of a police officer coming to their house, they're literally getting hooked up with like Axe treatment or Northside treatment, and they're getting services at that level.
Ms. Scott?
Thanks a lot for giving us this presentation. We kind of heard about you from the very beginning, so this is great. I have a question though about dispatch and 911. Are they getting some sort of special training that lets them know how to divert these calls, or is it a little bit dangerous for a dispatcher to be making that call?
So yes, specialized training is in place. They actually did roll calls with the dispatchers, but for this grant, the way it will be implemented, there's actually a flow chart. So if an individual is in crisis, let's just say I have a gun, I'm in crisis, and I'm you know at my home by myself, but I'm armed, and I tell the dispatcher that's an in progress, scary kind of weapons call. We're not diverting that call. Police are going to that. So there is a flow chart. If it's a non-violent, non-weapons, and they're just looking for services, like they need someone to talk to and they don't know what to do, those are the calls we're diverting. Where right now we have one response. We are a police department. We can send you a police officer. Probably not the right response, right? So we're just hoping to expand.
Well, that's a good information, because the Crisis Center already uses those trees when they decide where they should on their 411 calls. So.
And we're actually partnering with them like that. So they're on those talks. Like I said, we were in the planning phase, and we were on a conference call last week, literally talking about how to build that flow chart and what they do. Ours is going to be a little bit different because people do call the police to feel safe, right? So we have that, and we don't want to say we're never going to send a police officer. That's not at all what we're saying. We're trying to keep these people out of the system that may not need to be a Baker Act or a Marchman Act, and we can just refer if it's not an acute situation.
Yeah, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Valdez?
I would like to do a follow-up. First of all, thank you for this. This is great. You made a comment about how great you guys have become and where you guys are headed, and I can attest to that. I work in an environment that I deal with a lot of Baker Acts as it relates to juveniles, and I recall 4 or 5 years ago that I'll call for a Baker Act and officers will show up and they're like, oh no, that's not our alley, or they just won't, and then get a call at night from mom saying there was an incident and got Baker Act or whatnot. So I appreciate and commend the work that you guys are doing, that the department has put for this. So I really, really appreciate that. Kudos to you all. Follow up on the funding question. Do you guys have right now enough funding to implement the entire program as written in terms of hiring, staffing, and whatnot?
For what we're slotted for currently is the 4 clinicians, the 4 officers, and the supervisor, the sworn supervisor and the civilian supervisor. That's what our budget is currently, and that is in the city, that was in our new fiscal year 2024 budget. Beyond that, we are not budgeted for.
So there's not a sustainability plan moving forward for?
To expand.
But to expand to get more officers and whatnot.
More services, yeah.
We will be able to see this moving forward year after year in the budget?
That is up, this council approves the budget each year, so hopefully, yes.
And another question. So I see the officers that are obtaining the training and the certifications. Have you guys incorporated youth mental health first aid as part of the training?
We have not implemented that as a core block. That is another set of training that is offered. through one of our community partners. But no, this is separate from youth mental health first aid. I believe that is mandated for all of our SROs, if I'm not mistaken,
Got it.
school resource officers.
And then lastly, you talked a little bit about the referrals, the email. Is that only for when there's a call or there's certain that the officer sees or anybody can I make a referral? Can anybody in the community make a referral and seek services?
Anyone at all. So it's a public email. If you go to our website, there's a link on there, and you can literally say, I have concerns about this. Like a great example that she used was the elderly lady. Like if you are that person's neighbor, yes, absolutely reach out to us, and that's what we want to do.
So how can we help promote this? This is amazing to be able to have this resource and really, I don't think it's really out there. So how can we help to promote this program?
Indeed. Thank you for your appreciation and noting that we are a small unit. I think you could always redirect or just encourage people to go to the City of Tampa website, because not only do we have that email account there, the TPD BHU, but we also have the resources that we have vetted as ongoing partnerships, and we've made relationships with different community partners. They're on there, and you don't have to go through us to get those resources. There's all kinds of resources: substance abuse, mental health, specific for homelessness, veterans, anything that you can think of that we've come across and we have vetted as, you know what, this is still valid, this is a good resource, this has been successful, and we've been able to tour that facility, connect with a single person of contact, those are the individuals and the resources that are listed on that page.
Is there a pamphlet or business cards type of material that goes out to the families and calls when officers are out and about?
So yeah, families get a business card, and they obviously get the officer's cell phone number, basically. But we're in the process of marketing. Again, this is a new unit. We are looking at having brochures and QR. Now the new thing is QR codes, right? So that's in development stage at this point. But yeah, the individuals being served absolutely have a point of contact to call at any time.
But more so the officers that are just out and about, and they may run into a call that 17-year-old is aggressive and just coming in late, violating curfew, whatever that looks like. Mom is like, I don't know what else to do. There's not a crisis for Baker Act. Is there a pamphlet or little business card that officer can
That's what
give
we're working on. Yeah, and we would hope that officer would refer them to us. But yeah, we're looking at that.
We typically get those on the referral side if it's not an automatic alert that comes to my queue. However, our officers also have, the BHU officers also have automatic alerts for any of these calls that come in as a person in crisis, so they can triage and connect with that officer that's on the street and say, hey, what do you got? Do you need me? I'm on a follow-up right now, but tell me what you have so I can decide where I need to manage my time.
Amazing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Valdez. Dr. Collins?
Very quickly. In lieu of the discussions that's going on everywhere with mental health, and it's happening across the board, you showed us a 10-year-old, was it, an elderly, a veteran, and then a female. Is there any statistics that relates to the age group? That's just a question that you guys will be able to present, maybe in the future, if not now, on what you're seeing. And I'm gonna ask all three of my questions, you can ask them all together. The appropriations at both the state and the federal level, the grants are really great, but I'm hearing more about funding that may be available, particularly for any type of mental health related concern. And I want to ask a question, and then I want to make a statement. This last one is, tell us again so the audience listening will know what CIT, I heard you say CIT, but not defined it, but we defined BHU. The QR code, they are great. I'm glad you're saying pamphlets and cards, because one of the biggest questions we're finding now is sometimes individuals that's having these problems, they don't know how to use QR codes, or they don't have the apparatus or the technology to even work with them. So I would say continue with the QR codes, but make sure you have a simple phone number or something like that.
Well, and that's
That
pretty much,
digital divide
that's
is
pretty much the
serious.
plan. So that's the reason we want something handheld for those populations, so that's what they need. But there's also a whole generation way younger than me that could have used this mouse properly earlier. So, and that generation exclusively uses QR codes, and yeah, they don't know what paper is. So we're trying to serve every population. You talk about youth, I'll let Kathy, or go ahead with that, the stats.
Oh, regarding your question about statistics, we are actually partnering with USF right now to collect and aggregate data. I'm working with one student who is working on her PhD, and this is a part of some of the statistics she is reviewing. In addition to that, we are trying to figure out the best way to capture data, and that is because law enforcement information comes and is stored in a law enforcement database, and everything clinical has to be separate. It is stored in another database. So to get the two to communicate together, this point in stage, we've really just used something very, very archaic, and I can pull the data. However, it's very, very time consuming because it's just on a spreadsheet at this point.
Yeah, it's like we'd rather see you doing the work rather than pulling the data.
And anyone that wants to find us money, we're game for. So, and Ms. Collins, to answer your question, CIT is crisis intervention training. So,
I just have one more question. I'm looking at the training for the officers, and when they get this training, are they given some kind of a resource guide to say, okay, if this happens, or are they required to go back through you to have those organizations contacted?
Good question. So if you'll look on the CIT training, we actually do a field visit to some of our partners. You'll see on Wednesday, toward the end of the day, we go there in hopes that they will connect and build those relationships. They are not dependent on the BHU officers. They are not dependent on sending a referral to our unit. We make sure that they make those connections. Every speaker who comes in gives resources, information that is handed to them. Some of those agencies have QR codes, some of them have cards, some of them have phone numbers. But the point is they need to build that relationship with that provider themselves because they cannot always rely on us. So we do push that. And again, we also refer them to our website to click on those sources in case you lose that resource card or in case you forget who does what exactly.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Guy.
Excellent.
Any other questions?
Excellent presentation, but I hope any legislators or their aides that are listening at both the state and congressional level will give you guys some funding.
Indeed.
Lieutenant Polk, Dr. Thompson, thank you very much.
thank you.
The next item on the agenda is the CRB staff reports or business.
Hello, Mike Schmidt, and hang on one second, I'm gonna take the thumb drive out so she can leave.
You can get it to me.
I get it now.
Do you guys have a business card or a way we can contact?
All right, Mike Schmidt here on behalf of the City Attorney's Office, and I wanted to talk to the board tonight about the survey questions that the board is considering. As we've discussed in the past, the last survey was developed in coordination with NYU, grant funded, and in the end, when it got published, it was approximately 48 pages, if I recall. What we did was I then pulled out the questions that were asked in that survey. I reduced it down to just the 11 questions that are actually from that 48 pages, so that this board can consider the questions that were asked in the past and see if those are the same questions we want to ask again. If you'll remember, those questions were based on this board's extensive time. It had you formed a subcommittee to write these questions. Y'all formed these questions in coordination with NYU. The questions were then used in the survey, and so what we're proposing is to keep these questions hopefully very similar, so that we can have data from the previous survey, possibly with this survey. But that's our recommendation at this point, was to keep the same questions, but I wanted to present them with you so that you can start looking at them. I don't expect there to be an answer tonight, but maybe next time when you come back, we can talk more in depth about these questions. So at this point, I'll give you the questions and
Do
let
you
you look at
still
them.
have a copy of the report? Because some of us do, and there's new members to this board who didn't have the report. Do you still have it?
I absolutely still have it, and if I thought I'd shared it before, but if I
I
haven't,
thought you did too, but
I can share it again. Anybody still need it? Think you need it? Would it be helpful to send it again? Yeah, I'll send it again.
Yeah, but some of us were here, but others were not. So it would be really helpful for them to be able to see it because it's a really good report, so.
Yeah.
So,
So
Mr.
absolutely,
Smith,
I'll
you're
s-
gonna
I'll
give
send
us a list of the questions
And I'll give you a
now,
list of the questions, yep.
and then we can review them over the course of the next month, and then come back with our response at the November meeting.
And you know what, I'll email these questions when I email you the report too, so you have them by email as well. That's all we have.
So no other new business?
No other new business for
Okay.
TPD.
Now, items to be continued concerning the independent legal advisor.
Kamari,
I've got an idea, this is somewhat tongue-in-cheek, unfortunately. Maybe the city council can divert some of the funding for the legal advisor to the BHU unit for really proper use of taxpayer funds, as opposed to just creating another job.
I second
that. But I digress.
Kamaria Pettis-Mackle from the legal department. This item was continued from the last agenda. I did provide all of you an email with all of the resumes and the letters of interest for the individuals who would like to be considered for the legal advisor position. And we just left it, the board just left it that you would review the letters of interest and decide what path you would like to move forward. If you would like to, as Dr. Collins suggested, to take your time reviewing the resumes or the letters of interest. I just need some more direction from the board on how you would like to move this process forward.
I think we should select a date and say, this is our hard stop day. And I think last meeting, I wasn't present, but I saw the recording and there was some discussion about that. Either A, we review the resumes and we come back to the table and say, these are my top 3, and we discuss everybody's top 3, and if there's like any type of similarities, we can decide how we want to move forward with those 3 candidates, or we call them in and they can present to us, and then we make a decision. But I really would like, before we move forward, to meet the candidates and have an interview possibility type of scenario or case.
Yeah, could we have that discussion of the top 3 or top 2 away from this?
Well, we have to have that discussion in a public meeting for sunshine purposes.
Okay, well, can we call a meeting just for that doesn't have to be televised, just for the purpose of, didn't we have some of those meetings when we were even doing the survey?
Oh, that was,
something we weren't voting on.
right, it was a subcommittee. It's my understanding that you guys had a subcommittee meeting, and I don't know that I was present for
Do
that.
we have to vote on who we're gonna be interviewing?
It's the pleasure of the board on how you want to proceed with the candidates who've expressed interest in the position. If you want to have all of the candidates come, introduce themselves to the board, if you want to choose 2 or 1, that's the pleasure of the board. But it was a suggestion for the board to agree on a meeting, a public meeting for them, whoever the board so chooses, to come and introduce themselves for that to take place.
The public interview, so to say.
Right.
Okay. Well, I would suggest that we, each member of the board provide their votes for the person or persons that they would like to see interviewed or come before the CRB for discussion. And whoever among those candidates shares the votes within that Venn diagram can be asked. We can name those people at the next board meeting and then ask them to come and speak to us at the December. We're meeting again in December after November?
We haven't, so there hasn't been a date yet certain. That's our next item to discuss, is our next proposed
Next board
meeting.
Okay.
So I don't know if you want to continue this discussion about the process and who you want to consider when the chair and the vice chair are present. That's the pleasure of the board.
Yeah, I don't want to hijack that.
So we're
I'm in no
saying
hurry.
at next meeting, we're going to put this back on the table to discuss what we're going to do, or we're saying we're going to?
Why don't we hold the next discussion as to what we're going to do next at the next meeting when the chair and the vice chair are here. So we're tabling it. Dr. Collins?
Yeah, at last month's meeting, I think you were gonna try to find out if there was some type of evaluation form or something like that, they were already using. When we bring that back, that would be fine, and I understand the need and the urgency to comply, but we're in the process of complying, and the one thing I do not wanna do, since this is something we're being mandated to do, I wanna make sure that we do it right. I'm not in a big hurry. And I really don't want us to put December or any dates. I'm glad we're gonna bring it back, because I would like to also make sure that the RFP, the application process, or whatever it is, that everybody who have an interest in it, they will be able to apply. If we move this too fast, we don't know if we're getting the best candidates, because we don't know who know about it.
I agree.
That's mine. So I don't wanna rush the process. And this is personal, I didn't say we, I don't wanna rush the process, so I'm asking us to consider, to take the time that's required for us to make sure that, since we gotta do it, let's do it right, and let's make sure everybody, so people won't say, well, I didn't hear anything about it, then we gotta answer to that, and I don't wanna have to answer to that. And I would like to know, once
The evaluation.
we get that evaluation form, then we can look at all the applicants that come in, and we'll all be evaluating them off the same tool. And then when we discuss it, bring them here, at least we all on the same page.
That's a very good idea.
I just have I wasn't at the last meeting, but is there going to be somebody from HR that's gonna vet these before that? Because I don't feel like I'm qualified to pick an attorney for this board. This is just me. I'm not qualified to do that. I mean, if it was something I know of, but I'm not a lawyer. You are a lawyer.
Yeah, but Irene, you're not any more or less qualified to have selected Mr. Schmidt to represent, and Ms. Kamaria Pettis-Mackle to represent. So we'll have those names in front of us, and it's okay.
But wasn't the list of names already vetted by?
Right, by the city attorney.
By
So
the
there has
city
been some
attorney.
vetting, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Understood.
I just wanna put it out there. You know?
And I wanna make sure it's out there so everybody interested can get their names in to be vetted. And if they're not qualified, they'll never make it to us, I hope.
That is correct.
Okay, great.
Mr. Gandela?
Will we also be able to see the cost analysis for each one of these people?
They do, each individual who expressed interest did provide what their payment requests were. So we will provide that information to you as well. I mean, it's actually included in the documents that I provided to you.
Oh, it was good. Okay.
In their letters of interest, their fee statement was in there.
Oh, okay, thank you.
So if I could, I have an understanding of what the board, you want to continue this discussion to the next meeting. I did in advance of, during last month's meeting, I asked the clerk to see when the chambers were available. This board traditionally holds their next meeting in December, right before the Christmas break. And I believe the clerk stated that, what was the date? And I'm sorry. It was December 18th?
November 28th.
November 28th. It would be the 4th. So we've usually skipped November and gone to December?
Right, I think traditionally you've done December. You don't hold a meeting in November and you hold the next meeting in December. And Madam Clerk, we already looked to see what's date in December the chambers are available and,
No, we did not. We checked for November. Would you like to check for December?
is it the pleasure of the board to have a meeting in December?
Well, the fourth
And not
Tuesday-
have a meeting in November?
The fourth Tuesday in December is December 26th.
Right, so that's during the holiday.
Yes, yes.
I think in the past, we moved it where it was earlier because of the fact that the holidays all end in the end of the month, so.
Right.
You know, I'm open to that.
We split between Thanksgiving and Christmas and did it earlier in December. So the first Tuesday in December is the 5th, or the second being the 12th.
Either one of those work for me.
The 5th works for me. And the 12th works for me as well.
Yeah, and the 5th, a little bit further away, so it's.
So we feel we're not gonna meet in November at all? And then we'll go
No,
to
I-
December, or we're gonna,
That's
move
traditionally
November up?
been the action of the board is to not conduct a meeting in the month of November, instead hold it in an earlier week in December.
right?
Yeah. December 5 seems perfectly fine. Reverend?
With me.
Good, okay. All right.
And the clerk, I'm sure she's just checking to see if the chambers are available.
Chambers is available on December 5th.
Great.
Very good.
So if that's the pleasure of the board, can I just have a motion to conduct the next CRB meeting on December 5th, 2023 at 6 p.m.?
I move to conduct that
Second.
meeting.
You're the chair.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, you can't,
Mr.
I move
Valdez?
to, conduct the next meeting on the 5th of December.
I'll second.
We got it.
Okay, all the votes in favor of having the meeting on December 5, please raise your hands.
and that will be at 6 p.m.?
Yes, at 6 p.m. Anyone opposed? That passes unanimously.
And the last thing, and I'm sorry, can you just, can someone please make a motion to receive and file all documents? There was written public comment, a motion to receive all documents.
I just have one question before we do that. When I looked at that, this started at 3. Is there any reason it started at 3 instead of 1?
There's a back.
No, on the back it's 3, 4, 5, 6.
There were other
On the
comments
back
that
is
were,
7, 8.
there were other comments that were provided for a different date.
Gotcha, okay.
These
so-
are specific to this meeting.
For this meeting?
Correct.
Okay, that's why I was wondering, where was 1, 2, 3? And the other question I was trying to ask before we do it. Trying to see I'm looking for the header, so forgive me if I'm offbeat. I can almost tell what everything is. But the names that are on here, is this the individual who actually
Submitted the public comment.
submitted the questions? Okay. That's all I wanted to know. I didn't see the header and I was missing 1, 2, 3.
So if we can have a motion to submit the written comments?
I move to submit the written comments.
I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor, please raise your hands. All opposed? It passes unanimously. We will submit the written comments. Any other items, Mr. Pettis-Mack? Okay.
I just have
I do.
a question.
Yes, please,
Uh,
Mr. Valdez.
I know we've also have tabled the community meetings that we've been doing out in the community. Is that something that we still need to do for this new year, 2024? If so, I know we have said that we've had to do an amendment through the ordinance because that's how it's written. How cool would it be if we can go to events that the TPD attend, like different community events, and participate in their booth and, talk about the behavioral health unit and in lieu of those meetings? So can you give us some light as to?
Sure, Kamaria Pettis-Mackle from the legal department. As I said at the last meeting, your time to really address any concerns or any recommendations for changes to the CRB are when this board submits the annual report to City Council. At that time, and I believe we're going to start, that's I believe January, that we present that annual survey to city council, and then all members are invited to attend that city council meeting in which the chair presents the annual report to city council. At that time, any changes or suggestions or recommendations, that's the time in which this board should notate that to city council in order for the ordinance, to ask for the ordinance to be changed based upon this board has, acted upon the ordinance as it is, and these are the changes that we would recommend moving forward.
So in 2024, do we need to start planning to do meetings out in the community?
Yeah, I am, that's my responsibility to plan those, so I reach out to the single member district council members to coordinate those meetings.
10-4.
This guy?
This is new business, or possibly, you want to say something before I start?
Sorry, I got one other thing I wanted to let you guys know. There was a Citizen Review Board member, Mr. Cook, who has been appointed to the board. My understanding is he was going to come to observe tonight, but he was finishing the academy, and so as he's finishing the academy tonight, he was unable to attend. But we do expect him to attend at the next meeting.
Very good.
I am very active with my community, and we do have a problem with street racing, and I have been getting lots of calls and comments from my neighbors, both on the north and south part of Gandy. The big concern was 3 or 4 weeks ago when the police department did not respond to downtown Tampa when the racers were doing wheelies in downtown Tampa. So that has been a big concern. There used to be somebody who monitored next door for the police department. I don't know that they're doing that anymore, but the police department is getting a lot of bad rap on next door, and part of it is because of all of the racing. Channel 8 did a story yesterday and said, well, if you hear somebody racing, call 911. Well, when you call 911, the dispatchers are saying, this isn't an emergency, and they are not dispatching officers, which I understand, that's logical. But I would really like to know from my community, and it isn't only my community that has the problem, by the way, it's lots of us, I think all of us. If there is some kind of a plan that the police department is going to develop that is going to address this, and I understand that it isn't only Tampa Police Department, it's also the sheriff, it's Pinellas County, but these are citizens that live in the city of Tampa, and they are reacting to the Tampa Police Department. One more thing, and I don't know this to be true, I just want you all to tell me that if there's racing going on in the crosstown, the Tampa Police Department can't do anything about it. Now, that doesn't make any sense to me, but that is what the neighborhoods are saying. So they're calling 911, which is not really a way to react to this, because by the time the police department gets there, these people are gone. But there are some places they're congregating, and if the local news channels know where these people are, the police department should as well. And I'm a big supporter of the police department, so this pains me, but it is what's happening in my community. I'm done. That concludes my report.
And Mike Schmidt, I can give you a little response to that. I will let you know that TPD, we had a assigned detective who went out and did some training at the districts on street racing. They tried to come up with some operational plans on how to target some of the street racing events when they know they exist, right? So there's only, it's much harder to respond to something if you don't know what's going to happen. But when they're able to identify if there's going to be a street racing or a takeover event, they can do something about it. If they don't, obviously it becomes much harder. But there has been active training by the department trying to get more education on these things. If you don't know, under Chapter 316, they define actually what street racing is. And what's important to also understand, and it's not just the individual who's driving the vehicle. First off, you would have to meet the definition of street racing. A year or so ago, the legislature has expanded the definition of street racing to also be street performance and things such as donuts, burnouts, and they actually increased a lot of the things that can now be criminally responsible for as a misdemeanor. In addition, the legislature has made it their prerogative to say that spectators are also in violation of law just by watching these things. So that was meant to sort of help minimize this growing problem of these events being organized and people in the crowds watching and everybody enjoying someone doing donuts or whatever street performance that they're doing. So, you know, I think the legislature has taken some actions to try to help curb this. I think the department is trying to get out some education on this, but it is a difficult situation. And the difference between understanding when a performance or an actual street racing of two cars actually going side by side in a speed contest is probably different than a lot of the calls where people just hear a really loud motorcycle hauling butt down the road. You know, that's really that's just somebody speeding, right? But I think there's certainly a lot of loud vehicles that people are hearing and calling in on, assuming that there's some sort of racing event that probably oftentimes may not be an actual racing other than it's just somebody speeding.
Is someone in the police department monitoring social media? Because they get on there and
Yeah.
they are saying, well, we're meeting at the 7-Eleven on Gandy at 8 o'clock and we're racing. I mean, it's all, I mean, they actually say these things. So,
Right.
you know, and I'm an old person and I know they're on there. So, it's, you know, if I can see it on there, I know that somebody
Right.
else can see it on there, so.
Yes. Your instincts are correct, yes.
Okay.
And to add to that, as you guys are creating educational or material, if we can create something for the young people, I know the juveniles are heavily involved in those races, and it's unfortunate that anybody is because of the danger that it can become to the driver and to any other community members, bystanders. So we can look at being able to possibly create a presentation for teens as well in the development of the educational material will be great as well.
Okay, I'll reach out to the detective who's been working on this.
Thank you, Mr. Lopez. Thank you, Ms. Guy.
You're welcome.
The meeting of the Citizens Review Board is now adjourned.